So there's a new report out from the Civil Liberties Union for Europe, and it's basically sounding a huge alarm bell. It's asking a really fundamental question. Is our digital democracy actually in danger? Let's get into it.
Just stop and think about it for a second. When you really want to protest something, or share a big political idea, or call out someone in power, where's the first place you go?
Yeah, for pretty much all of us, the answer isn't some physical town hall anymore, right? The real heart of our public life has moved online, into what this report calls our online civic space.
So this idea of a digital town square is central to the whole thing. But what are we really talking about here? Before we can even get into the threats, we've got to be clear on what this space actually is.
Okay, so what it really boils down to is this. It's all the digital places, social media, blogs, forums, where we go to act like citizens. It's literally where modern democracy is happening. It's where we organize, where we argue, and where we demand things change. But here's the catch. This is the big problem the report just lays bare. This vital space for democracy is under a massive, coordinated attack all across the European Union. And look at the sheer variety of these attacks. We're talking about everything from straight-up disinformation campaigns and awful online harassment to way more sneaky tactics like doxing, these abusive lawsuits, and even digital surveillance. It's like they're throwing everything they've got at it just to silence critical voices.
And you gotta understand, this isn't just happening in 1 or 2 countries. The report pulls its findings from 11 different EU member states, and what it shows is a clear, widespread pattern. It's a playbook for shutting down online speech that's being passed around and used over and over.
Let's just zoom in on one of those tactics for a second. Slaps. These are just nasty. They aren't real lawsuits that are meant to be won. No, they're designed specifically to bleed journalists and activists dry, draining their money, their time, and their energy until they're just too scared to keep speaking out.
And the scale of this, it's just wow. Take Croatia, for example. In just 1 year, there were over 900 of these lawsuits active. Can you imagine being a small news outlet or a freelance journalist trying to do your job with that hanging over your head?
And it's not just, powerful corporations or individuals. This is where it gets really chilling. This quote from the report shows how governments themselves, in places like Hungary and Poland, are weaponizing online platforms to go after anyone who dares to criticize them. And these attacks? They're often laser-focused on specific groups. A government survey in Sweden found that a staggering 2/3 of female journalists have been victims of online attacks. This isn't just about silencing people in general. It's about driving certain voices out of the public conversation completely.
So with all this going on, you have to ask yourself, who's actually in charge here? Who is the referee in this digital town square? Well, that brings us to the next huge piece of the puzzle. The incredible, unchecked power of the tech platforms themselves.
I mean, think about it. We never voted for them, right? But a tiny handful of private companies now act as the ultimate gatekeepers for what billions of people can say and see. They are, for all intents and purposes, writing the rules for our digital civic life.
And here's the fundamental clash. Their goals as businesses are often the complete opposite of what a healthy democracy actually needs. Platforms want to maximize engagement and collect data, and they do it using secret algorithms. Democracy, on the other hand, needs reliable information, public accountability, and room for real, nuanced debate. They're just pulling in 2 totally different directions.
So what does all this lead to? Well, a total moderation mess, frankly. The report found that platforms are constantly failing to take down stuff that's genuinely harmful and illegal, like hate speech. But at the same time, their automated systems end up censoring totally legitimate, harmless content, sometimes even from the very activists and journalists who need this space the most.
Okay, so with this crisis getting bigger and bigger, the European Union finally decided enough is enough. It's time to act. So they responded by creating a brand new rule book for the digital world.
And they brought out the big guns. A massive, landmark law called the Digital Services Act, or the DSA. You can think of this as Europe's attempt to write a new constitution for the internet, one designed to finally rein in the power of big tech. So what does this new rulebook actually say? Well, first off, it forces the biggest platforms to get way faster at taking down illegal content. Then, and this is a big one, they have to actually explain their decisions when they remove content. No more mysterious shadow bans. They also have to open up their black box algorithms so we can see how they work. And maybe most importantly, it gives us, the users, new rights to appeal their decisions, and it gives researchers the data they need to really study what these platforms are doing to our society.
So the DSA sounds pretty good on paper, doesn't it? But as the report makes very clear, passing a law is just the first step. Making it actually work, that's a whole other battle.
And this quote from the report really hits it home. The fight for a safer online space is far from over. Ultimately, the success of this whole thing is going to come down to one word: enforcement.
And that's exactly why the report doesn't end with a victory lap. Instead, it lays out a clear roadmap. It says the EU now has to get really aggressive in monitoring what member states are doing online. It has to directly support the groups on the ground fighting disinformation. It needs to invest in digital literacy for all of us. And it has to make sure the new regulators are truly independent and have the teeth to hold these giant platforms accountable.
So we're left with this final massive question. Europe has its new rule book for the internet, but is the political will actually there to enforce it? And even if it is, will it be enough to save our digital town square for democracy? The honest answer is, nobody knows. That story is still being written.